So I'm super excited. We are at SkillsUSA National Competition and their leadership conference. And to start things off, I get to talk to Eric Hill. He is the executive director of SkillsUSA Illinois. Welcome.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so glad. I'm so excited to be here. Like, how many times have you had the opportunity to come?
This is my 14th year at a national conference, but I tell you what, every year it's so great to see the kids stepping outside the walls of the classroom and really diving in with industry partners and seeing exactly what the skilled trade that they're excited about is really going to be like when they get out there in the real world of work.
I love that. I love the fact about stepping out. And I think that's what Career Tech Ed does. And what SkillsUSA does is really let students have the opportunity to participate in what it's like in the real world, like you said.
Absolutely, yeah. It's all about letting our students connect with those employers and really see the value add. It's their Super Bowl right now. These students have been practicing all year long in their particular trade, and now they get to come here and showcase in front of thousands of people and then hopefully be on stage here in a few days, getting that gold medal draped around their neck.
I love it. It's so exciting.
Absolutely.
So tell us about yourself, Eric. How did you get started in all of this?
Yeah, so I was a member of SkillsUSA. When I was in high school, I was enrolled in a dual credit program through Illinois Central College, studying computer science. Honestly, the reason I got into my CTE class was because my particular teacher was also my track coach, and I just wanted to hang out with him for a couple hours out of the day.
Okay, there you go.
And then come to find SkillsUSA, ended up meeting my future employer, and worked in industry for about 7-8 years before coming back to SkillsUSA Illinois. And now we've got a great team here in Illinois that is trying to grow and expand SkillsUSA across the state.
I think it's so exciting because like your roots are there, right? So Career Tech Ed, you started there and you got to stay there. I mean, how exciting is it for you to have a career that you actually started in high school with?
Yeah, so as a little kid, I think I wanted to be a lawyer until suddenly I found computer science, and then here we are. All these years later, now it's running a nonprofit organization. But the real value add is I still get to see and work with so many different students, so many different employers, and it's just really it's the work that needs to be done, right? It's the work that NCCER is doing, it's work that SkillsUSA is doing. It's how are we connecting students to career opportunities? I don't know that I could think of a more rewarding job to be doing right now.
Absolutely, totally agree with you. So let's talk about the importance of career and technical education, especially today. I mean, I think throughout history, it's always been important, but I feel like it's something that pendulum swinging back a little bit, and people need to remember and understand the value that Career Tech Ed has.
When we think about career and technical education, we're finally starting to get away from the idea of, four-year university isn't for everyone, right? That's been like kind of our excuse as to why career and technical education hasn't been at the forefront of conversations for so many years. That's kind of been an annoying statement for me. Like, we can't just say that four-year university isn't the only path to success, but then have guidance counselors and all of our decision makers in our life still wanting the best or wanting you to go for a four-year path, right? That's great for another kid, but maybe not my student. Now I think parents, when they're coming to SkillsUSA events or when they're seeing the opportunities that exist for their students and their children, we've got parents coming to us saying, how do I get access to a job like this? So career and technical education, whether you look at it from a federal level, the federal policy down to state level policies across the country, or even local school boards and workforce boards, everyone is talking workforce development and the need to get students access to more opportunities at a younger age. So this is the perfect time for us to be having these great organizations like SkillsUSA and having these opportunities, because whether employers want it or not, they suddenly realize workforce development has to be on the forefront of their minds. And so that's kind of pushing us all forward in this workforce development space.
I totally agree. And I love the fact that, there's been things said about career and technical education that I get tired of hearing too. It's like choices. I just want young people to know there's all kinds of options. There are four-year degree programs, there's two-year degree programs, there's going directly into industry. And I think that's what I love so much about Career Tech Ed, because it opens people's eyes to do some explorations when they're really young, instead of thinking, as you said, I'm going to be a lawyer. And then so many students go in and they spend time doing it, and they're like, they go to school for it and they're like, oh, I don't really like this.
Yeah,
And
this isn't fun.
exactly.
Yeah, and I think so. So a few years ago, we partnered with the U.S. Department of Labor and started creating apprenticeship programs because we have employers, at events like this. We have hundreds of employers sitting around us right now, but I guarantee most of them are here because they want to see the workforce develop, but they're scared to hire that 16, 17-year-old because of whether it's child labor laws, whether it's insurance concerns. So we took a step back during COVID and said, how can we help solve this problem? How can SkillsUSA Illinois be that connecting tissue between employers and our school systems? And we found the Department of Labor's Registered Apprenticeship Program to be an incredible opportunity. It lowers the child labor law restrictions down to 16 years of age, makes it to where insurance companies aren't raising rates because you're hiring youth. And now we're getting students in the trades and the skills that they want to be in and that they're studying in while in high school. And now we see employers suddenly seeing, increased potential, increased output because now they've got a high school student working for them, under the hood welding and really doing some incredible work. And so we're just really excited about the Registered Apprenticeship Program, and just kind of everything is shifting in the right direction for career and technical education and workforce development. So it's a really exciting time to be doing this kind of work.
It is. And this is so important because I don't think people even correlate high school with registered apprenticeship. Like, this is something I talk to employers all the time. They don't even think that there's registered apprenticeships in merit shops. They don't even know, like, it's unions. They're great. They're wonderful, but that's not the only place to get these registered apprenticeships. So you thought about it in COVID. How did you even get started doing that? You reached out to DOL, but how does that work?
Yeah, so we started with an internship program. So it was actually sitting down here at National Conference a couple of years before COVID with one of our employers, and they just said, we really need to see that ROI from SkillsUSA, right? How we love the philanthropic idea of investing, but if we're really going to talk about making a commitment to SkillsUSA, what do we get out of it? And so it turned into the idea of us just saying, we'll help you build internship programs. You call us, you tell us the location in Illinois that you want. We're going to connect you with our local school. We'll help do kind of first round vetting of candidates. And then we're going to hand you a list of qualified candidates that we think would be good in that position. So that started off, worked really well, and then COVID hit, and so everything kind of went on.
Everything changed.
And so, but then during COVID, we started hearing the conversation around the silver tsunami, right? The baby boomer generation that's going to retire.
Yes.
Obviously, coming out of COVID, we've seen the workforce in a completely different environment than we've ever seen before. And so that was our time to really say, we need to sit down and figure out how this is going to work. So John Deere was leading the way in the youth apprenticeship space. So sitting down in a meeting with them and talking about the benefits of the youth apprenticeship program. And one of the representatives from John Deere said, Eric, if you're going to make the difference, the registered apprenticeship program isn't for everyone.
Right.
It's hard for companies to manage that logistic
Yes.
with the Department of Labor. There's red tape. It's, small companies can't take advantage of it, but John Deere is able to take advantage of it. He said, but if you could act as that intermediary and help sponsor and support those companies, he goes, I really think you could change workforce in Illinois. And so we now sponsor just over 100 different companies. We have 500 plus apprentices that are working for those 100 companies, but we do all the work on their behalf. So we register with the Department of Labor, we track, we monitor and maintain the apprenticeship all on their behalf. So it's we're really just trying to take all the weight off our employers' shoulders and say, just go hire students, train and develop them to be the future.
So that's incredible. I didn't realize. So even though they start in high school, you're continuing that apprenticeship program with the employer. So someone can start in high school. They've done an internship with some employers. We do this matching, right? The
Yep.
employer with the student, and then they just roll directly into the apprenticeship program at the employer.
So they're, even while they're in high school, they're technically part of the apprenticeship program. But yeah, even after high school, they're going to stay with that program for 2-3 years, depending on the length of the apprenticeship program. And so one, it allows us to stay in contact with our students and see, where are they really going out of high school? The apprenticeship program works really well for us because our community colleges, a lot of them try to do apprenticeship programs, but they have to keep it within the confines of the student being enrolled at the community college. So we can kind of transcend or cross between both high school and college and keep those students involved and active. The other big benefit is right now, federally and at state levels, there's so much investment being made So our employers are actually seeing a great benefit by partnering with a registered apprenticeship program, whether that's incumbent worker training to where they can send students on to community college and get that cost subsidized for them, or just taking advantage of state tax credits by hiring apprentices. There's lots of opportunities out there right now. So part of what we do is just connect the employer with all those funding opportunities as well. And I should mention, we are grant funded by the state of Illinois right now. So we have several grants that allow us to do this work. So we don't charge anything to our employers. We don't charge anything to the students. This is really just about how many apprentices, how many youth-focused apprentices can we get out there in the workforce.
That is amazing. So how hard was it to get the grants that support your program?
The hardest part was getting people to understand that what we were doing was actually, I'm going to say legal, kind of tongue in cheek, but that what we were talking about, we could actually do, right? Everyone said, well, you can't get employers to buy into this. And even if they did, are you even really allowed to do that work? But once we got the model proven, honestly, there is so much money, federal funding, state funding out there. The grants are really not difficult to come by. It's a lot of work. I have an incredible team that helps us manage all of this. But our everywhere from our board down to our staff, we really had to make that decision that this is the investment we're going to make, and it's, we're going to go 100%. We're either going to run through the brick wall and make it out on the other side, or we're going to get smashed. So far, we're doing pretty good with it. But yeah, it's all about getting our students job opportunities, and whatever tools and means we can do to take advantage of that. That's what we're looking for right now.
I love this program for so many reasons. And I love the fact that you talked about you get to stay connected to your students, which is great for them because you've created this support system. They started becoming a part of something when they're in high school, and it's like very genuine. And I love that. And then the other thing I love is there are so many employers that think training and apprenticeship is, like you said, they can't attain it. It's something we can't do. We don't have an L&D department. We don't have a training department. This is, we have 50 employees, we have 100 employees, we have, whatever it is, and they're scared of it. So the fact that you guys are willing to take on that side of it is amazing.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is, I think for employers, it is kind of scary for them to admit they don't have a great onboarding or training process. Right? Everyone talks about culture and how important culture is, but then it's like, all right, well, let's talk about how we can integrate these apprentices into your, onboarding process. And they're like, whoa. So what we're starting to do now is really create kind of that white paper, or that like how to guide of not just build a youth focused apprenticeship program, but how do you actually build an internal onboarding and training program? And then we see employers now suddenly taking the opportunity to, hire military and putting past military retirees through this program, incarcerated citizens, second chance citizens getting the chance. So we're seeing that employers had this need to understand how do we onboard and really train and develop. By the way, don't forget SkillsUSA and all of our great students that we have coming through this program. So we're seeing employers really, this need existed for our employers, and I just don't know that they knew how to ask, or even that the need was there. But again, perfect timing is everything, right? So the silver tsunami, COVID, like suddenly they didn't have the workforce they needed to do the jobs that they were getting hired for. And so if we are able to come up with a solution for them, then that's a huge win for everybody. And then our members are right there ready to jump on board with those job opportunities.
It's so fantastic. What I love too is that for years we've talked about industry education, collaboration, partnerships, and there is that, well, I don't know who to ask. Well, I don't know who to talk to. And it's not either side's fault. It's just that they don't know how to connect. So what you've done is you've kind of taken that mystery out of it, and you've become the connector, which is, that's what we need, right?
Yeah, and now we're starting to build out 360 evaluations. So a year, 2 years, 3 years after these students are in their high school training programs, it's evaluating them and having them come back to us and say, okay, the employer come back to us and say, okay, what skill set would have made them just that much better, or would have helped you get them into that pathway just a little bit faster? And we're taking that data back to the schools, not just with the idea of saying, hey, go do this, but hey, let's go do this with this partner because they have a need for it. So whether that's getting students to come onto the shop floor and see that particular process or training take place, or having the employer coming to the school and getting the equipment donated to that school, it really is, like you said, just that connective tissue that we've all talked about needing. Now we're just trying to find a way of actually making it happen.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So you talked about something in there too, getting back to us talking about SkillsUSA. Let's talk about how SkillsUSA enhances career tech education. Because I still find there's people, believe it or not, that don't know about SkillsUSA.
Yeah, one of the worst sayings is that SkillsUSA is the best kept secret in the country.
It is.
I don't like that saying at all, but unfortunately it's true. SkillsUSA, it all depends on, SkillsUSA looks different in every school across the United States. You can be here just as the competition school, right? You have the leadership development side. You also have the core technical standards that, sometimes we forget how valuable those technical standards are. I think sometimes when we're here at the competitions, we think about those technical standards being the outline for the competitions, but really we're influencing classroom instruction across the country. One of the best examples I think is when I think it was carpentry or maybe the teamwork competition introduced metal studding about 10 years ago. And every high school, I remember every teacher coming to me and saying, Eric, we can't find metal studding, that we don't have time to teach this in our class. Well, go to a high school construction program now, here, 10, 15 years later, that isn't teaching that skill set.
Right.
So that truly is employers influencing education. Whether they know it or not is a different story, but those technical standards are probably one of the most valuable assets that we as an organization give to our schools, because it really is what industry wants to see. Then the other thing with SkillsUSA, it really is that growth and personal development of these students. When you talk about, students experience, even if they just come to your state competitions and have the fortunate opportunity to come here to nationals, this might be the first and second time they're ever staying in a hotel or traveling outside of the state.
Good point.
Just the ability to interact and engage with young adults across the country, we can't forget how invaluable that is on a student. You talk about the great experience they have kind of inside we're looking at a competition, right? Inside the competition space, but we forget about all the experiences they're going to have at their hotel, at the airport, coming and going. It's
life skills, real living it, doing it.
Life skills. And then to watch them walk through Texpo and have engaging conversations with employers as a 17, 16-year-old, there really is no better experience than that. It really is incredible.
Yeah, I think, and I do think, one of the things I think that employers need to hear is that technical standards, because a lot of times employers have the wrong idea because of past experiences with career tech ed, and they don't actually do what we need. They're not actually building, or if it's, culinary arts or it's automotive, they're not doing really what we need to hire. And what you've said is, no. We have technical standards. We're making sure SkillsUSA, by SkillsUSA being a part of a school, we take that CTE to the next level. We ensure that they're at the standards. And I love the fact about the professional development of the students, because, that's just so important.
Yeah, there's some of those things that are just so intangible, right? You don't even realize you're giving them these opportunities until you look back on it and you're like, how many times, I'm sure you've heard this before, gosh, Susie or Billy, when he first showed up into my classroom, wouldn't talk to anybody. Now he's running around trading pins, and he's going to be the number one competitor. Like he's just completely come out of his shell. We don't give that enough praise to what that's actually doing, because you're not just getting the student to talk to someone. Think of how much more, how much stronger their first interview is going to be, because they have the confidence to say, no, I have had experience in my life. Maybe it's not a job, but this is darn near a job right now. You're competing in front of thousands of people in the trade, and you're representing your state. That's a pretty big thing for a student. And then when we think about our technical standards, it's sometimes we have to remind employers, because not every employer is going to go out and see. We don't have a natural gas competition here, right? We don't have high pressure gas. But that doesn't mean the high pressure gas industry couldn't absolutely see the value of what 75 of these competitions are teaching to our students. So it's remembering, maybe it's not in your direct industry,
right?
But it's those core skill sets that you still want in a high school student or a college student. They're here, and every employer across every industry should be here, whether it's behind the ropes in the competitions or out here in a Texpo booth. They should be here.
Absolutely. So let's ask this, just because you were saying that specifically. I'm a contractor. I'm an employer. I've never heard of SkillsUSA. How do I find out in my state where I am anything about SkillsUSA?
So lots of ways to reach out. So reach out to just SkillsUSA.org. There's a way you can reach out through the national office, and they will definitely connect you with the state director. So every state is set up kind of like a franchise. So I'm the state director in Illinois, but if you reach out to SkillsUSAIllinois.org, my team would be able to connect you with any employers or schools that we have in the state and just talk about what does that opportunity look like to get your company more involved. But I have counterparts in all 50 states and the territories as well. So you can either go to those state websites directly and reach out, or to the national office. But really, at the end of the day, the main thing is take that first step and ask the question, right? Whether you're here on the competition floor and you get that bug of excitement, and like, don't forget to take the next step and actually make the reach out, right? Don't miss this next year. Don't miss the chance to be at your state conference or even your local level programs next year. Like, do it right now while it's top of mind. Or if you're just watching this podcast and you're like, maybe I should give it a try, make the reach out. It'll be a 15, 20-minute conversation, and we can figure out if it's right for your company or not.
Absolutely. And I love that it's at the local level too. I don't think people realize that is you don't have to travel somewhere. You don't have to go somewhere to see this. Like, it's happening in your backyard. All you have to do, like you said, is ask, like, start the conversation, only to find out, I had no idea such and such high school that's 3 miles from our headquarters or a project, they're actually SkillsUSA school.
Absolutely. And I think our teachers don't know how to ask maybe some of the simple asks. And I don't say that like our teachers don't know what they're doing. They just don't have the time to do that.
That's true.
One of the biggest things, if you're a large contractor and you've got job sites all across the country or all across the state, one of the best opportunities you can give, reach out to your local SkillsUSA state chapter and say, I want to get as many students as possible on our job sites. Tell me where your schools are at, and let's connect them with work site tours. Get them on site, get them experiencing your company in some way, shape, or form, and then just let the natural buildup of a partnership start there, right? But be that one to reach out to the teacher or to SkillsUSA, and then let us make the connection so that your students get that first experience, because then it's just going to keep going from there.
Absolutely.
And that is so valuable for our students to see it, feel it, touch it, experience it. The more we can do that, the better the students are going to be here on this competition floor, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, one of the things, and we talked about this early on, the perceptions of career tech. What do we do when a lot of the parents don't know about that, or they have misconceptions about what it means for their daughter or their son to be in a career technical education program?
Yeah, so when you think about like micro beating down the dirty jobs idea, right? Like when you think of all the career fairs, all the exploration programs that we're doing, really what spoke the most to me when we're talking to parents, when we're talking to school counselors, it's showing the not just the dollar the student has the potential to make, but the actual career path that student has. Yeah. I think for the longest time in the trades, we have talked about how great the money can be if you're in the trades, but we don't talk about what that path or progression really looks like. And so when you start breaking it down that, you can start that progression at 16 years old, or you can start it at 21 years old, it's still going to be that same pathway. It's kind of like investing, right? That the earlier you start investing in that Roth or that 401k, the more money it's going to compound over time. It's the same thing with investing in the trade or the workforce, right? The sooner we get those students into those experiences, the less overhead, the less personal commitments they have to worry about, family and other responsibilities, the better off that they're going to be. And when you show that path to parents, and the parents know if the student's more inclined to be hands-on, or maybe a 4-year university is in their path, but when they see the students in action like here, and then they see the upward mobility and the path that exists for them, it's really hard for a parent to want to stand in the way of that.
Right.
Like, it takes a lot of pride to stand in the way of that. And even then, we have some parents coming back to us and saying, gosh, I thought our student was going to be an engineer.
Yes.
But he's under the hood welding, and I think he's going to be welding for 5 or 6 more years and then probably teaching. And that's going to be the path that they're going to go on. So perception is everything, but we're changing it slowly but surely.
We are. And I think the pathway is very important for a career, because you hit it on the head there, is that a lot of people have this idea in any kind of skilled trade, you just do this for the rest of your life and you don't have anywhere. And that's so much further from the truth than they even can imagine, because, I talk to so many people and they're like, oh yeah, I did this for 3 or 4 years, and then I got some training in my company and I moved up to do this. And then I moved over to a totally different division. And now I didn't even expect, or like you said, teaching. I can't say how many people that I've talked to, and they're like, oh yeah, now I'm a trainer at our company.
Yeah, and yeah, when I said teaching, I didn't mean like
Yeah,
high school teacher.
yeah,
I meant
absolutely.
training at a large corporation where you're making really good money to train the future workforce. And that's where I think, we talked about 4-year universities, 2-year universities, and we really look at it as like that on-road and off-road of education, right? So just because they're coming into an apprenticeship program with us in high school doesn't mean they're destined to never go back to school.
Right.
In fact, our employers, we're crafting the message to our employers saying, really you should be reinvesting in these students and these apprentices and sending them to community college or 4-year universities. Oh, and by the way, here's the federal and state funding to help you do that. So SkillsUSA is not pushing students away from education, but it's being more intentional about that career path and where and when do they need that education to be the most successful. And that's, again, it's a simple concept, but when you really break it down, I don't think people are thinking that way. So when you start breaking it down like that for a parent, even for an employer, it makes a lot of sense to them, and we're seeing great success with it.
It does make a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to think that, because we all should be lifelong learners. We all want what's next. I want to understand how to do something different. So I love that. What do you think? Because you're in the trenches, you're working with the young people. What is this generation looking for in terms of career opportunities? I mean, it's hard to just like sum it up in one because everyone's a little different. But what are you seeing?
Yeah, so this generation is not the lazy generation that we describe them as. They work differently than the generations before them. Honestly, I'm not far away from that generation that's being described right now. But it's not about committing to an employer and grinding out with that employer for the rest of your life. It really is what is just like the employer was talking to us about their return on investment a few years ago. The employee, the student is looking at it the same way, right? It's not just a paycheck. It's
Right.
What is that return on investment going to be? What is my work-life balance going to look like? What is my upward mobility? What potential exists out there? Jokingly, I hear people say, well, I'm not just going to go buy a fancy espresso machine in my office just so I can get these kids to start showing up to work. And it's funny, but then you look at companies like Google and Facebook and all these tech companies that they have invested in all of these kind of random things to help keep that culture and people happy. So really, it's all just about the culture that you're building at your company. It doesn't mean you have to have the fancy espresso machine, but you have to have the student feel like they're part of that culture, and they have to know the impact they're making, not just day to day, but on your company as a whole. I think that's the number one piece to get students that seem a little more apathetic to the workforce. They just want to understand where they fit into the equation, how they belong, and what does tomorrow look like for them. And I think that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. I do agree. So if we flip that and we say, so the contractors or employers today, what are some things they can be doing to make their organization more appealing to this generation of workers that we are seeing more and more young people in this generation choose the skilled trades?
Yeah, that's $1 million question for sure. I really think, again, it's not just about going and buying those fancy espresso machines at all. It's really just making sure the students don't think of themselves, or the apprentices or the young employees don't think of themselves as just another employee. It's having that training and development culture, having a mentor with them. The apprenticeship model, I'm going to keep sticking to that, but having that apprentice model where you have that journey level worker, or that higher level worker that's with them, working with them the whole time, showing them that path. So it's not just a path on a piece of paper, but talking about them and showing where does upward mobility look like. And then remembering, especially if you're hiring younger people, they don't need to do the same job day in and day out. Still think of them as like that intern or that job shadow. Let them go job shadow someone in accounting. Let them go job shadow someone in sales or marketing, or whatever different divisions you have, so that they understand the total impact that your company makes, not just what their one job does.
Absolutely.
And that makes a lot of difference in a young adult evaluating, one, if this is the career field they want to be in, and more importantly, if this is the employer they want to be with.
Absolutely. I think that's so true. My daughter, that's getting ready to be 22, she graduated from construction management, and it was really important for her when she had offers. So she had multiple offers. Great. But it was about the culture. Like, she really wanted to know, tell me about the company and what it's like to work for this company. And I thought, well, that's, back in the day, like, I don't want to show my age, but I just wanted to get a job. I wasn't asking, like, what's your culture like?
Yeah, so I think employers, even not too long ago, employers' mentality was the employee is lucky to work for us. I think now employees are looking at employers saying, you're lucky that I'm working here. And so just the ability to do that kind of reverse interview question and say, tell me more about you as an employer, that speaks volumes to just how desperate we are to find good skilled talent. And so, I guess my only piece of advice to that would be like, don't settle for that first job offer. Make sure you are asking those culture questions, because, again, we're looking at a workforce that will job hop around. They're not going to stay at a job for 30 some years, but if you build the right culture and you show them the right upward mobility, job hopping doesn't mean they need to leave your company, but maybe go to a different division, go to a different part of your company. And so keeping that culture and that idea intact is a big deal. Going back to that training and development plan that we talked about, like some employers don't have that. Those are the conversations we start to have with these employers. Again, with the mention around youth focused, but I do think employers are starting to realize, like, gosh, we don't really think about that. And we need to take some time and invest in that. And it does make a difference.
Yeah. And I think we have to get, you mentioned it. I think some employers that are stuck in the old mindset, even you saying something like, well, the employees are thinking you should be lucky to have me. And I don't think that we should upset anyone. Like, it's not out of arrogance. It legitimately is. This is a competitive market right now. I don't think there's any job market that's not competitive right now. And it's about you as an employer being competitive, and it's about the person that's looking for the position being competitive. And they're bringing a lot to, especially kids that are going through your programs. I mean, they're coming prepared. They've been in high school doing it. They're moving into the next level of apprenticeship doing it, and they're ready to work day one.
Absolutely. We're seeing one of our employers, they have just over 40 of our apprentices actively working for them right now. Really have bought into this apprenticeship model, but they do off-the-street hires for welding, and those off-the-street hires have about a 35% retention rate after 1 year. Our apprenticeship program's got an 86% retention rate.
Ooh.
So when you're talking about the
ROI how much
logical investment, right? Like who do you want to spend more time on? Do you want to spend time on the young student that, sure, maybe they have to work around sports schedules and prom and all these other things for a couple of years? Yeah, it's worth working around that if they're going to stick with the company and have that longevity. So you're right. It's not intended to be, throwing it back in the employer's face saying, shame on you. But it's the real world we live in. It's how many times do you have somebody walking up to you as an employer saying, hey, I got a job offer at blank. What can you do to help me? How can you make me stay here? Like, that's a real conversation that's happening because, we all go to the restaurants that say, sorry, drive-thru's closed because of short staffing, all the way to we order a product. I just ordered windows for my house. Normally 6 to 8 weeks. It took 6 to 8 months to get those windows in. That backup isn't just because we don't have the raw material. It's we don't have the people on the assembly line or that entire production line to make it happen. So, yeah, it's a very competitive market. And again, employers just have to think a little differently when they're hiring.
Totally agree. So someone wants to find out more about your program, specifically in Illinois. How do they find out about your program?
Absolutely. Come to either SkillsUSAIllinois.org or again, you can always reach out to SkillsUSA.org and get a hold of us that way. But any contractors, employers, teachers, educators listening on this podcast in Illinois, if you have any interest whatsoever, we'd love to come meet with you, discuss how SkillsUSA can be a part of the great work you're already doing, and would love to talk about getting some of our students employed at your contractors.
Well, you have a fantastic model. I love how you've worked apprenticeship, and you've taught me a lot even today that I didn't know about apprenticeship. So I think it's really important. Cannot wait to see the model that you put out and what you guys are doing. So thanks for sharing all that with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.